Hey everyone. So I want to talk a little bit about initiation because it's something that I'm seeing is quite current for a bunch of men that I'm working with, a bunch of boys as well. So people at different gateways, different thresholds, 16 to 15 years old, also coming into 40 or just on the back of it. And I want to talk about everyday initiation, this idea that it doesn't need to be some grand spectacle. You don't need to be seeking the mountaintop, so to speak, to initiate yourself. Especially in our current day and age, it seems to be a softer calling. Doesn't seem to be this like roaring thing. It can present like that, especially if you don't pick up the subtler cues when they're calling to you, and you turn away from it. If you don't acknowledge them and you try and avoid them, then it can stir up and become something that's more loud or chaotic. I'm going to talk about the link between attention, intention, and initiation, and how they kind of make up this journey arc from when you first start to feel a shift or something changing, how to pick up on that and how to track it and follow it to a pathway of initiation in a very natural and intuitive way, so that you don't have to get too caught up in seeking the perfect opportunity, or you don't need to go out of your way and follow the trends or the blaring obvious billboards of initiation that get put out there. You can just invite it into your everyday. So my background's in tattooing, and tattooing at its core is an initiatory process for sure, simply on this physical level that you change. You're one way before the tattoo and you're a different way afterwards. And that can flow through all of the different layers that make up our being, our psychology, our emotional state, our spiritual state. And for me, by paying attention to that in my own tattoo process, I've been able to follow the threads and understand what tattooing is at a level that it's allowed me to be initiated into a deeper relationship with it, and then offer that pathway to other people. And so that's resulted in the foundation of Tattoo Pathway, which is in early stages, but I'm guiding people through initiatory processes that integrates their tattooing in their life. We have a small community, and there's a guiding narrative within our community. And in our current month's theme, we're looking at crossing from the external world to the interior world. And even though it's out of context of the larger story, I want to share just a little bit of a synopsis of the chapter that we're up to, because it speaks to what I'm trying to offer people here that might feel like they're on the precipice of change. So in our story, there's a character, he's a young man, and life's taking him really far from his place of origin, and he's trying to find his way back, and he's got this stirring in his heart, and he's trying to find answers to what it is that's yearning in him. And he's had an interaction with a couple of different characters along the way, and a cicada and an echidna, and he's been directed to sort of ascend this mountain. And on his way up the mountain, he's high enough up to look back and sort of see the river and this tree, this great wise tree where he grew up, and he thinks he's high enough to call out, and so he does. And after multiple calls, on his third time, someone answers his call, and it's an eagle. It's this wise eagle that's perched up on the mountain. It's like, who's calling? He says, it's me. I'm seeking the answers to the yearning in my heart. Do you have them? And the eagle's like, I don't have them, but maybe they're higher up. Maybe they're right here. I don't know. What I would recommend is that you go into this cave that's just over there. There's a nearby cave at this point on the mountain. I think you should spend a night in the cave. And if tomorrow you still want to make your way to the top, it's a treacherous journey, but if you want to go there, I'll guide you. So the boy enters the cave, or the young man enters the cave. And so the theme that we're looking at in this chapter is crossing the threshold into the interior, crossing to the interior, the internal world becoming the primary focus. So our attention going inwards, our attention moving from this outward seeking to an internal reflection and contemplation and looking for the answers and looking for the direction and the guidance from within opposed to without. And so how that translates to initiation on a level that's accessible to anyone in your everyday experience is that to start that journey up, to reach this place where the external world will point you in the right direction, you first need to have intentional action. And this is the arc that I was talking about. So the first thing you need to do is pay attention to what's happening. You just need to pay attention and see what's the first light. You can think of dawn to dusk being this same journey, a symbol of this same cycle. So what's the first light? Can you pay attention? Are you awake at the crack of dawn? Can you see the initial stirring, the initial awareness that you're at a point of change, that you've come far enough in your previous chapter, in your previous version of yourself, in your previous relationship, job, whatever it is, whatever your story is, that you're at a point where you need to let go of something, you need to open up and embrace something new. And when you pay attention, then you can start to be intentional in your everyday. As soon as the awareness is there, your attention becomes the scope of your intention. I'm moving towards a change. I'm moving towards a shift. I'm going to pay attention. What is it? Where is it coming from? What path am I going to take? So being intentional, be intentional. And by paying attention and being intentional with whatever's in front of you in your daily walk is what's going to allow you to perceive the invitation or the opportunity that presents itself. Simply moving into everyday situations that are new, that are uncomfortable, that are exposing you to something that feels like a process or a pathway towards the place that you need to go, or away from the thing that you need some space from, that you need to shed. It could be anything. It could be anyone. And so this intentional action is what opens up the pathway or that arc of initiation. And once you step onto the pathway, once you bring attention to it and it opens up, then you're on this movement, whether it's up or down, into a peak or a valley where you'll be introduced to and initiated into that process of change, of transformation. So similarly to what I see within tattooing, where people kind of isolate the tattoo experiences, this is what it's about, and they forget what's happening before and after. They forget that there's an initial motivation. There's something that impulses you or motivates you or inspires you to get tattooed. That's the start of the process. That's when you need to start to pay attention, so that your approach towards the event or the act of change, the signifier, the thing that sort of draws the line in the sand, the thing that cuts off the old self and moves you into the new one. The no going back moment. Paying attention in the process is what's going to align you with the most appropriate process. And then you've got to make your way all the way down from the top of the mountain, all the way back up from the depths of the trench. So it's quite active. Initiation isn't this stagnant, isolated point in time. It's cyclical. It's a journey. It requires intentional action. It requires attention in order for initiation to really be embraced and embodied. The process of initiation doesn't start when there's a knock on the door, when it's loud. It starts with paying attention to the footsteps as it's approaching the door. It doesn't start with force. The entry point isn't a physical opening into the process. It begins with stillness and attention and listening, anticipating that it's coming, so that you can be at the door, you can be ready to receive whatever that process and that pathway and that invitation of change is for you. And it's because real initiation into the mystery of this life, into that which is sacred, isn't waiting for you to find the right program or waiting for a better time to do it. It's just waiting for you to pay attention. It's just waiting for you to acknowledge what's happening. And it gives you a lot of time. There's usually a fairly lengthy grace period before it starts knocking really hard. And so do your best to pay attention, to feel into where you're at, and to track the different cycles and seasons of change that we do go through. So you can have awareness of where you're at and what you're in, and start to harmonize with it, start to align, start to utilize it, utilize these changes and the timing of your walk, of your pathway as a springboard, so you can grow and refine yourself and change and be on a path of betterment. Be intentional, have direction, not be thrown around by the turbulence or the currents of life. And if you want to read any more about this everyday initiatory concept, I've started a Substack publication called Everyday Initiation, and I'm drip feeding an interview there that I did that speaks about initiation from our contemporary lens, what's missing, how we might be able to access it. Obviously, I lean on tattooing because that's the main support and vehicle that I've used myself and I guide people through. But it's a broader conversation than that. It's actually not about tattooing. It's about self-perception. It's about purpose. It's about meaning. And you can subscribe on there for free and follow along. And again, if you found the video useful at all, share it with someone, subscribe to this if you want to hear some more from myself around these topics. If you've got tattoos or you're planning to get tattoos and you're interested in more than just an everyday tattoo process, you want something that's structured and sacred and supportive, you can check out Tattoo Pathway. We have a bunch of resources there, a podcast. We have a community that we bring people into intermittently in cohorts. We also have coursework. So there's lots of options there. If you want to know more, if you want to get involved, if you want to reach out, don't be shy.